Now, in the United States, with yesterday's notes, I said that the United States in 1935 had Congress signed the Neutrality Acts, right? And the word neutrality, right? What does that mean? What's in that word? Neutral, okay? Right? It is basically the Neutral Act, right? It is a law saying that the United States is going to remain neutral in these foreign affairs, right? Things that are going on outside their country. They want to remain isolated, okay? They don't want to get involved, right? So it made a law saying that we're going to remain neutral. However, Roosevelt fears that if the Allies fall, right? So if Britain falls, right? That's pretty much all that's left of the Allies over in Europe at that point, right? It's just Britain. Okay, Russia has now been betrayed, so they're going to swap sides and obviously fight back against the Germans. So you kind of pick up the Soviet Union to some degree as an ally. Right? If the Allies fall, right, the U.S. is going to have to get involved. Right? There's no choice, right? Hitler's not going to stop at this point. Clearly, he wants to take over the whole world. Okay, so we'd have to get involved eventually if they fail. So they're struggling. We're going to feel like we need to do something. We're going to sign this Lend-Lease Act into law here, so where the U.S. is going to loan weapons to countries that are fighting Germany, right? So we basically make an amendment to that Neutrality Act saying if you're fighting Germany, we'll be involved in that and we'll loan you weapons, right, to help the cause. All right, Japan's Pacific campaign. Okay, so we looked at Europe and what's going on there. Now we've got what's going on the other side. Remember, you've got Italy, you've got Germany, part of the Axis powers there in Europe, but you also have Japan way on the other side there in the Pacific. Now, what are they doing during this time? Well, Japan wanted to conquer territory. That was one of the main strategies they were trying to use to get out of, the economic crisis from the Great Depression. They wanted to expand their territories, right? They thought they'd be able to gather resources, or they would be able to gather resources, which would be able to help them drive some economic growth to get them out of that depression. So that was their strategy, was conquering new land. They had already moved in and went to a war against China. And now they want to take some of these other European countries throughout the Pacific. All right. The United States, we have military bases in the Pacific. All right. There's one big one that we have, and that's in Hawaii. All right. That's Pearl Harbor. Okay. So in 1941, President Roosevelt is going to cut off the oil shipments to Japan. So we're no longer going to send them resources, because they are, allied with Germany, and we're not supporting that. So they are going to end up planning an attack on our U.S. fleet there in Hawaii at Pearl Harbor. December 7th, 1941, they are going to attack and bomb Pearl Harbor, right, using a strategy known as kamikaze, right, that's suicide bombing there into our boats and battleships and things like that and buildings there in Hawaii. So the United States, at that point, we've been attacked, right? So we're going to get involved now, right? That Neutrality Act is no longer in play. We have been attacked by another country. We are going to declare war on Japan. The U.S. is going to send some bombers over to Japan. We are going to bomb Tokyo and some other Japanese cities in 1942. Those bombs don't do a lot of damage, but it does show the United States one thing, right? And it's that Japan is vulnerable, okay? We are able to fly over, right, and bomb them with success, right? That is an actual viable option now, right? It shows that they're vulnerable, that we can have success against Japan. So there in May, we're going to begin launching some attacks. Japan has a lot of territory, not just that island of Japan. A lot of those islands throughout the Pacific there south of Japan, they pretty much control all of that. We are going to launched several attacks on those islands throughout the Pacific. All right, one of the big battles during that time is the Battle of Midway. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth about that today, but the United States, we're going to send our Navy over there, fight their Navy, right? And we're gonna wipe them out, and Japan's going to be forced to retreat. Now, Douglas MacArthur, he is the commander of the Pacific. He's the one who's in charge of this battle against Japan over here in the Pacific. And the plan that gets adopted is island hopping. Right? What does that sound like? Going from island to island, just like the name sounds. Right? So, the United States, we're going to raid some of these weaker bases. Right? Get our troops there on an island. Right? Gather ourselves and continue to push and go island to island, picking and choosing which one we want to go conquer, right? Meanwhile, pushing Japan back and back and back closer to Japan, right? So we're going to continue to gain ground with this island hopping strategy.
So are we taking that over, or are we just like destroying their resources?
We are taking territory, taking resources, and weakening them as we go.
So at this point, it's like our territory. After we like destroy the island.
Do what?
So like after we start the island hopping, is that becoming our territory at this time?
Yeah, we're holding on to that. Like we're controlling our military operation is going to kind of be based out of that area, and then we're going to continue pushing as we go. So yeah. All right, more on Japan later. Let's flash back over to Europe now. Right. So with the Holocaust, obviously we know that the Holocaust, right, is a major piece of World War II. Connor, you asked about that a minute ago with the Jews, if that was ongoing. Yes, it was. So Hitler and the Nazis say that the Aryans, or the Germanic people, right, they are the master race. They're going to end up launching this Holocaust, right? This genocide, this systematic murdering of Jews and other ethnic minorities, Jews being the big one in that region. It's really going to begin around 1935. That's when these Nuremberg laws are going to be put into place, which are taking away rights for German Jews, right? So the German people that are Jewish living there in Germany, their rights are going to be taken away. So like their personal rights and freedoms and different things like that are going to be taken away. Over time, the Jews are going to be gathered into Jewish cities, basically. Hitler's just going to have all the Jews moved into these one designated cities where they're going to live, basically slums, kind of like the Industrial Revolution when we saw those just nasty, terrible apartments. He's basically just going to take all the Jews and put them in one big Jew city, right? And that's where they're going to live, okay? His plan was hopefully that they would all just die of disease, and right, that solved the problem themselves, right? Didn't happen as fast as he wanted to, and that's when we start getting some of the other stuff that we'll talk about in a little bit. So we have Kristallnacht here, the Night of Broken Glass. That is November 9th, 1938. We are going to see Jewish homes, businesses, synagogues. They're going to be attacked, and we're going to see 100 Jews killed here, and that is really going to mark the beginning of this attack on Jews there in Germany. Right, after that attack, right, the German Jews, obviously they're going to fear more attacks on themselves. Okay, they're going to want to get out. They're going to try to flee to other countries, and Hitler is perfectly fine with them just leaving his country. Okay, he's going to encourage, right, them to leave. However, the surrounding countries, right, they don't just let, and that's just this part of the world here, right? Countries don't just let anybody and everybody come into their country and move in, right? There are immigration processes and numbers and things like that of a certain amount of people they'll only let in. Okay, so the countries surrounding Germany are not going to let all of these Jews, these German Jews, come into their country. They're going to let some come in, but not all of them. So the ones that are left, Those are the unlucky ones, right? So Hitler has all the Jews moved to these designated cities, like I talked about, forced to live in these ghettos, right? These separate Jewish areas. Said that a moment ago too. Hitler hopes that the Jews in the ghettos will die of disease and starvation, but they're going to survive. So his final solution, Hitler's final solution here, right, is genocide, right? So he is going to attempt to kill the entire people there, the entire Jewish people. All right, we're going to see the Nazis and the Soviets. They are going to work together in this. Men, women, children, all subject to mass executions. All right. The women and children viewed as useless, they're just going to be killed on spot. The men seen as at least a little bit of valuable while they're alive, right, to be used in labor camps. They're going to be sent to these labor camps, these sort of slave prisons, right, and then shipped off to these concentration camps once they get too weak and too frail to do anything. So we're going to see them used for basically slave labor and then executed after that. That final stage there, that's basically what I just talked about. Mostly the women, children, and elderly and the sick, they're immediately killed, right? The men are sent to these labor camps to work until they can work no more and then killed. 1944, the U.S. creates this War Refugee Board and approves 200,000 European Jews to come over to the United States, to go through immigration that way. But we are not going to take any military action at this point, right? We're just going to rescue 200,000 Jews and leave it at that, right? We're not getting involved there. All in all, the Nazis are going to end up killing about 6 million European Jews during the war. Fewer than 4 million survive. So you're looking at 60, almost 70% of the Jewish population is going to be killed. Right? The European Jewish population is going to be killed by the Nazis during World War II. Right? That is near complete genocide there.